Goal setting is a very important topic that we cover in this class. So I wanted to walk you through the PowerPoint and sort of give my lecture on this topic, and you can follow along with me. You can either just watch this video, or if you want to pull up the PowerPoint, I am linking it down below. You can pull it up and follow along with me or take notes, but I just want to go through this PowerPoint with you and give you a little bit of detail about this topic since it is such an important topic. Goal setting has a very close relationship with grit. The definition of grit is perseverance for a long-term goal. So having a long-term goal and short-term goals is just really important to know about. So you should have previously just watched the video on long-term goals versus short-term goal setting. So we're going to dive into exactly how you set up a good goal statement, okay? And your goals can be really for a lot of different components of your life. You can have goals that deal with your career or fitness or finances, relationship goals. We are going to specifically in this class, we're just going to be talking about academic goals. Okay, some of the examples that I use are going to be on things that are not academic, but I'm just using those as examples for you, okay? But whenever you write your own goals, I want you to be thinking strictly along academic lines. All right, so short-term and long-term goals, we're going to be looking at both of those in this class. Right now in this module, we're going to be writing our short-term goal, and you just watched the video that said you kind of work backwards. So you should have an overarching long-term goal and kind of work backwards to figure out your short-term goal. And again, we're thinking along the academic lines. So the reason it seems backwards, so why don't we do long-term goal first and then short-term later? When we discuss long-term goals, it's going to be after we do a little career exploration and academic planning. So your long-term goal could be tweaked a little bit. It could change some if you decide to change your major. So we will be going back and setting a long-term goal later in this semester. But for now, I just want you to think of like your overarching long-term goal and try to work backwards and think of a short-term goal. For example, your long-term academic goal could be to get a bachelor's degree by a specific year. So you may not know exactly what your bachelor's degree will be in just yet. Maybe you'll find out, or you'll have a better idea after we do the academic planning in a few weeks. But you can still work backwards from that vague, not smart, not specific goal of graduating with a degree. So a step backward in a short-term goal would be something along the lines of being successful this semester. So if you're successful this semester, that could help you achieve your long-term goal of eventually graduating. So whenever you're goal setting, we're going to keep it SMART, okay? And that allows you to set a goal and have a goal statement that follows really good guidelines. So when we talk about SMART and your goals, that means that your goal statement is specific, it's measurable, attainable, relevant, or realistic, and time-bound. So when you talk about your goal being specific, it means that you're not using vague statements. How can you say, I want to be amazing at this? How do you measure amazing, right? How do you know what that means? What does that mean? Okay, so that's not very specific. So when you're being specific, you identify an action or event that you want to take place. Okay, so look at these two examples. Decide which one is a more specific goal. Do you want to do better in history, or I want to increase my history grade from 85 to a 90? Do you see how the second statement is a lot more specific than the first one? So next, when you measure, for it to be measurable, how will you know when you've achieved your goal? And that's what that means, is you want it to be measurable in a sense that you will know if it was accomplished or not. So which one of these is a more measurable goal? I want to improve my mile time by 30 seconds, or I want to run the mile better. And yes, I did have a typo, so I fixed that real quick. But which of those statements is more measurable? How would you measure running the mile better? Okay, there's not really a way to say you did it or not do it. How would you say that you did it better? Okay, so find something that is measurable. And measurable and specific are very closely related. If you have something that's measurable, that means that it's probably going to be specific enough. All right, so do you have the support or resources to achieve your goal? So your goal has to be something that you're actually capable of reaching with your given resources. Okay, so look at these two statements below. I will live a more organized life, or I will organize all the closets in my home by the end of March. Okay, so yes, this is talking about closets and organizing. But to say I want to live a more organized life, that's a lot of different, it's very broad, okay? And you may not have all of the resources to be organized in your every aspect of your life. So your finances, your home, your school, your job, there's a lot of these things, okay? So that could be a little unachievable if you're looking at a huge picture of all these different areas of your life. But if you say, okay, here's this one area, you're being specific, and I want to organize this one area by a certain time, that's a little more achievable than having this larger goal. Next, be realistic. Does your goal make sense for your life? Okay, so this is something that should be realistic to you and your lifestyle. It should definitely be something that puts you a little outside of your comfort zone, but still something that would allow you to be successful at. Okay, so look at these two statements. Which one is more realistic for a goal as a teacher? Okay, so my goal is to discover a cure for cancer, or my goal is to inspire at least one student to become a doctor to research a cure for cancer. As a teacher, the lifestyle to actually be able to cure cancer, that would be a really big stretch, right? Versus you're teaching, so it's a little more realistic that you could teach a student who goes on to do research. Okay, makes sense? And finally, the last thing you want your goal statement to be is timely. So you have to have some sort of deadline and some date at the end. So between these two statements, which one is more timely? My goal is to run in a half marathon by August 2020, or my goal is to be able to run a half marathon. Okay, so if you just say, I want to do this, well, when are you going to do it? Is it going to be next year? Is it going to be 20, 30 years from now? What does that look like? So having a time, very specific time, is very important. All right, so this practice round, the next page in this module is actually a list of sample goal statements, and I went ahead and kind of marked it up and showed you what was wrong with it and what guidelines were missing. So be sure to look at that. You're not going to be practicing doing that yourself, but it does show you an idea of why those things are smart or not. So that is definitely a very good thing for you to look over and to kind of figure out how to determine if a goal is smart or not. So like I said, we are going to be looking at your goals, and we're going to be identifying a short-term academic goal. So what is something that you want to achieve this semester? In the previous video, they said a short-term goal was something that's less than a year. So that definitely fits into that. What is something that you want to achieve this semester? So when you're coming up with that short-term academic goal statement, think about, why is this goal important to you? Okay, earlier we talked about grit and having these long-term goals and having perseverance towards that. So you really have to think, why is it important to you? Hopefully one of the reasons is because it's leading you to your long-term goal. Whenever you have a goal, you have to set some action steps. What are things that you can do to achieve your goal? You have to have action steps. So go ahead and start thinking about that. This is something that you're going to discuss in your goal discussion board post. Other things that you should keep in mind is overcoming obstacles, knowing things that could trip you up or keep you from this goal ahead of time, thinking about what are those things that could keep me from achieving this. It's going to help you build an action plan or figure out, what am I going to do whenever I meet this obstacle. Having those already, that thought process is going to help build your grit through that process. I also want you to think about, what are the benefits of achieving this goal? Who does it benefit? What about those people around you? Those are all good things to keep in mind. All right, so you're going to write it down and we're going to discuss it in the discussion board. And just to clarify, you're going to be discussing your short-term goal in the discussion post. So in that post, you're going to be writing out your short-term goal statement. And I don't want you to be confused. Your short-term goal statement is one sentence that encompasses all of these SMART characteristics. So in one sentence, your goal statement should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And there are some other writing prompts that you're going to discuss in that post as well. Okay, well, I hope that this video was enlightening and helpful and that you learned something that maybe you didn't know before. If you have any questions about how to set your academic short-term goal, please don't hesitate to call or email me. I can't wait to see all of your goal statements.